Happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is maintaining frame number 187,
Mhm.
which is also like the police code for murder, which is appropriate this Friday. Um, the
It's all
scariest story
converging.
you'll ever read all year. Huh?
I said it's all converging.
Yeah. It's an interesting coincidence. That's why I wasn't sure what to call it, and then I looked at the number on the maintaining frame, and I was like, oh, it'll be 187, which
Yeah.
is I believe that's the murder code. But
Yeah, it also
so
applies to the
yeah,
murder of our civilization too.
that's would potentially, yes.
Potentially, yeah.
So
Okay.
I am here and Allison is here, and we're going to be looking at this article from the Atlantic, which is ironically, because the Atlantic is generally a left-leaning paper, pro-feminist, bit progressive, but even they're seeing the writing on the wall. And Mark Novikov wrote this article entitled "The Birth Rate Crisis Isn't as Bad as You've Heard, It's Worse." So
Mm-hmm.
there's the panic is beginning to set in, and we're going to be looking at this article today, and I guess also the base camp video, which is a
Yeah.
bit of a flip side on it because it's more optimistic.
Well,
So
it describes the solution, or at least one of them, to the decline in the birth crisis, and which is really interesting because I had an extended conversation with a feminist about the
well, we
potential.
talked about we
Yeah.
talked about this too on the show many times, and so I'm glad that Mark and Malcolm and Simone are sort of landing, in the same place. They're smart cookies. So anyway, you guys might have noticed that things are a little bit different. I have made things a little bit more festive on our screen here, so we have a little bit of Halloweeny background, and I have like a jack-o'-lantern. It's like right there. I
Yeah.
made it. I never made a jack-o'-lantern before. It's my first time. I stuck to the basics. So that's a real jack-o'-lantern made from a real pumpkin back there. But anyway,
Cool.
so yeah.
I didn't do anything. I usually put up my zero little dog ghost, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, you know what? Here's my Lucy skull. There you go. Maybe I'll just hold this.
All right. No, don't do that. I have like a skull on my shelf too, as well as this eyeball thing that like is motion activated. It's like a crystal ball with an eye inside of it. And if you walk past it, the eye opens and it talks, but it just goes off like every like 30 seconds. So I'm just leaving it off. Just trust me, there's an eyeball behind me as well. Scary eyeball.
Scary
But
eyeball. Oh yeah.
yes. But let's
All
but
right.
anyway, with that out of the way, let's I guess like do the things so we
Yes.
can get into the story to into the topic. So go ahead.
All right. So if you want to send a message at any time throughout the show, please do or a tip in a message. Please do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very much appreciated, whatever funds you send. And it's the best way for you to send us a comment because it doesn't go through YouTube's scary corn labyrinth comment system. Take that for what as you may. And also we are doing our monthly fundraiser. It's at feedthebadger.com/support. So please help us out there if you could. I want to do a big thank you to OKFS who put in $250 prior to the beginning of this show. So thank you to OKFS and also to Telemnar who put in $200. So we have a grand total of $700 left. So if you guys could help us out with that, it'd be greatly appreciated. All right, so let's just get started.
All right. So this is article. Oh, by the way, Allison, I have unfortunately, like this show can't go longer than an hour and a half.
Okay.
I have a guy delivering me a dining room set that we bought on the marketplace, and I gotta he's gonna drop it off at 2:30, and then I gotta go right from there to go get Lindsay. So
Yeah.
All right. So the Atlantic, the birth rate crisis isn't as bad as you've heard, it's worse. Humanity is set to start shrinking several decades ahead of schedule, by Mark Novikov. Again, what do you mean by, well, first of all, ahead of schedule? So like did you have plans for the humanity to shrink and it's just happening faster than you thought? Is that the issue? I don't know, but
it's not quite. It's basically they had population projections and they included some assumptions that probably weren't supported.
Yeah.
So that's what that means. Yeah, we could go with the World Trade. No, what is it? The WEF interpretation, the World Economic
Forum
interpretation, which is that we want population decline. Not so sure about that, but it is. So essentially what that means is they had a projection. It's worse than that projection.
Yeah.
So let's find out what those mistaken assumptions were that led to the rosy optimism of the human race basically starting to shrink in 2000, I think 75 or something. Yes. So go ahead.
All right. So first, the bad news. Global fertility is falling fast. The aging populations of rich countries are relying on ever fewer workers to support their economy, dooming those younger generations to a future of higher taxes, higher debt, or later retirement, or all three. Birth rates in middle-income countries are also plummeting, putting their economic development at risk. Practically the only countries set to continue growing are desperately poor.
For a while.
Say anything about that?
They're going to continue to grow for a little bit, and then they will cease. Actually, before we continue, just double check to make sure that it's going out through Twitter, because there has been issues with that.
I checked.
Yeah,
I checked it for the show I did yesterday, and it was there. But let's see.
I had to actually. Oh no, it is okay.
It's there. I see it.
All right, excellent. So whatever fix I did worked permanently,
okay.
I guess.
Well, I guess it was a Twitter thing then. I don't have access to your account on Twitter right now, so.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. Okay. By about 2084, according to the gold standard United Nations World Population Prospects, okay, again, you're giving a lot of credibility to the United Nations, but okay. The global population will officially begin its decline. Rich countries will all have become like Japan, stagnant and aging, and the rest of the world will have become old before it ever got the chance to become rich.
That's nice,
okay. Yeah, what? Go ahead.
Well, that's nice. I mean, basically, the Western nations sort of pulled the ladder up behind them. And also that means that we're going to have a relatively comfortable decline while they are probably going to be plunged into horrific squalor. So yeah, yay us, huh?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's one way to frame it. The thing is too with Japan, they were the canary in the coal mine with regards to the issues between men and women, with the herbivore men being essentially the precursors to MGTOW, as far as it being recognized on a grand scale. So maybe there's a relationship there. Maybe Japan's problems that were going on way before. Maybe there's a relationship. Maybe it's something we should have been looking at. And again, I'm not even sure that Japan's problems in that regard are ideological per se, because it's not like, feminism is like a massive thing there. So it's really just like, I guess just something about the relationship between men and women in that country. Anyway, so sorry, did I say bad news? That was actually the good news, based on estimates that turned out to be far too rosy. Every 2 years, the UN's demographics revise their population projections. And for the past 10 years, they've always had to revise in the same direction, down. Next year, they'll do so again. In reality, the worldwide population decline is set to begin decades ahead of their expectations, because global fertility trends are much worse than they, and probably you, think.
My estimations were probably even more pessimistic, just because I know that it's going to be a force multiplier. Once you reach a critical point, especially in cultures that are, infested with feminism, it's going to become a force multiplier. Once the tar pit of the party of single women, and they're all reinforcing their own attitudes towards marriage and family. Once it reaches a critical mass, there's like almost no stopping it. So yeah, I always had a pessimistic projection, because I knew that embracing the notion that men and women are defined through oppression, the relationship between men and women, the complementarian relationship that is the foundation of all of our societies, all of our progress, even the concept of economy. What do you think the first exchange system was? Between men and women. That's the very foundation of our economy. And reframing all of that complementarianism in terms of oppression was going to destroy everything. It was because everything relies upon that trust and that sense of mutual reliance. And we destroyed it because, and get this, guys, we destroyed it because somehow whenever this began, I guess the real critical thing started in like the 60s, feminists essentially said, how do we define gender roles, or that is the relationship between men and women, in such a way that it benefits feminism? Literally said that. And nobody at that time said, wait, this sounds like it could be dangerous. Maybe we shouldn't give feminism complete control over the engine of society and then allow them to define it in whatever way benefits them. Maybe this won't turn out well for us. And shock, it didn't.
Yeah.
And I know Japan is a different situation, but I think it does have its own kind of brand of feminism.
Sure.
And the other thing is that what it's really facing is this complete economic stagnation. And that itself also yields problems with family formation. So if there's no upward mobility, families don't tend to form. If there's no legacy, families don't tend to form. And the other thing with family law in Japan is, from what I recall, it does have a feature that would tend towards not encouraging stable a birth rate. And we can get into what that will be. But so there's something really critical going on here. And once we get to the second thing that I want to talk about, which is Malcolm and Simone's base camp, discussion of this, then we can talk about that. But let's finish up the article.
All right. So Jesus Fernandez Villaverde, a University of Pennsylvania macroeconomist, studies how poor countries develop. This development usually happens alongside a fertility transition. As people move from rural areas to cities, their economic opportunities expand and kids become less crucial as a source of agricultural labor. Women gain access to contraception and education. They go from having about 6 kids on average to 2. Fernandez Villaverde calls this the standard modernization story, and he's been teaching it for decades.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want me to keep going, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's gaining access to contraception and of course the Atlantic is
education. Education.
And education. I wonder what's hiding in that word education.
Because like I don't know if having children, like let me back up. I don't know that the need for agricultural labor is the primary force behind people deciding to have children. I think it's just the desire to have family. But if you go get educated somewhere, maybe that will be the way that it's spun. So women get access to education in a city, and then contraception, and then they stop having children. Maybe I think the education is probably the big part of that, though.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot hiding in that word education.
Yeah, there's a lot
of Greeks
going on there. Yeah,
a lot of Greeks in the belly of that word education.
The word education is doing a lot of heavy lifting. All right, so let's. I got Gary Thomas gave us a super chow, for $5, and he says, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there an academic who predicted that if humanity kept growing at its rate, then the Earth would run out of natural resources? Every developed country in the world employed policies to discourage people from having more children.
Mm-hmm.
None of the predictions said academic came true, and he is still employed in some American universities. Unfortunately, it's harder to convince people to have more children than to convince men to have less. Yeah, that's what we're getting at. I think that the fear-mongering about overpopulation is just one of the many ways that the people try to engineer humans to have less kids, and I
Mhm.
think it's effective on women in particular. And now
Mhm.
we're reaping the rewards of well, not yet, but it's coming, right? It's coming. So we're going to.
We're
And
going to reap
then
the rewards of it.
and
Yeah.
when that does happen, the people who do have kids will actually be the ones that will be able to weather that storm, because they'll be able to like work together, like, before we had industrialization, to survive. So like all
Mhm.
of that, I think the people who are having kids are actually going to do better than the
Mhm.
ones who are not. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Or anyone who actually is related to pushing back against the shame that we place on men, I
Mhm.
think. Because ultimately that's the only place where a solution is going to come from. The crucible of saying, no, I'm not going to be pressured out of recognizing that women are to blame. It doesn't mean that they're the only ones to blame, although
Yeah.
they do have a lot of blame to take now, because it's like a dam. There's a lot of pressure behind the dam because we haven't been doing it for so long. But
Yeah.
yeah, the people who are willing to stand up and say, no, I am not going to be influenced by women's egos and women's feelings to deny the truth of what is happening. And
Yeah.
those are
Sure.
people like us. We're few and far between, guys. We're a rare species. We have gills and we can breathe underwater. But the truth is that the solution can only come from the rare species, the rare prototypes, shall we say. Okay, let's keep
All right.
going.
Much of Fernandez Villaverde's research focuses on Latin America, an economically middling region where one would expect middling fertility rates. In recent years, however, births in some Central and South American countries have plummeted to rates far lower than most rich countries, in defiance of the standard modernization story. Each
Mm,
year, Fernandez Villaverde updates his data on Latin American birth rates, which he gathers from the country's official birth statistics in preparation for a class he teaches about the region's economic history. He first began noticing in 2019 that the UN was too optimistic, but only in the past few years did the discrepancies become downright alarming.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of this is, I mean, you could say that a good portion of what propelled the richer nations into having fewer children was simply, prosperity and increased, doing whatever, increased entertainment and all of this kind of stuff. And but what is propelling Latin America into even lower fertility? That's the question. What's causing that? It's not the same thing. And I don't know if there's significantly more economic stagnation in Latin America, or maybe there's significantly more of something starting with the letter F.
Do they mean Latin America is in South America? Because
No, I think it also includes Mexico, maybe.
like yeah, okay, Mexico.
And is
Um
Mexican birth rates, are they that
I
low?
just Yeah, they're probably low. I think it's all because if there's a lot of like socialist countries, I'm not sure people have a lot of kids in those kind of countries because
Oh,
things
it's
get pretty desperate.
1.9. That Mexico is at 1.91, so it's doing
Okay.
better than the US and probably
Yeah.
better than, and if it's doing better than the US, then it's probably doing better than Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
So go figure. All right.
All right. Definitely better than South Korea. So
Yeah.
much of Fernandez, did I already read that pit? Yeah, I did. For 2024, the UN had projected 701,000 births in Colombia. It had put the chance of the number of births being lower than 553,000 at only 2.5%. In the end, Colombia saw only 445,000 births in 2024. That translates to a fertility rate of 1.06 births per woman, down to more than
More than
half
half.
from 2008.
Okay, yeah,
Chile
this
is
is
even lower.
this is plummeting. Okay,
Yeah.
continue.
At current rates, 100 reproductive age Chileans can expect to have 52 children and only 27 grandchildren. Wow. Demographers generally consider a birth rate of about 2.1 to be replacement level, or the point at which a society doesn't shrink, that's like breaking even from one generation to the next. The discrepancies were not limited to South America. In 2024, Poland's births were also below the 2.5% probability cutoff, as were Estonia's and Cuba's and Azerbaijan,
Azerbaijan. Yeah.
yeah,
I can't believe I
Azerbaijan
corrected
and
you
Sri
on
Lanka
something.
and Egypt. What?
I corrected you on a word.
Well, it's not
Azerbaijan.
a word; it's a place. I don't get
Yeah, a
out. I don't
place.
get
But
out
it is a
on that.
word. Like, that is a word. It's a
Well, it's a
place
word, but
name.
it's a place.
But I
It's not like
actually corrected you on something. Like, look,
yeah,
just
yeah,
let
no,
me have this.
Azerbaijan.
Let me
Okay,
have this. Okay, continue.
okay. And Sri Lanka and Egypt. These supposed outlier results aren't outliers at all. The world is just not having as many babies as the UN had thought it would. So like but the UN, well, I mean, I know they're not gonna like say they don't even speculate on what the cause might be.
No.
Because the UN is a part of the problem, if you ask
Mm-hmm.
me. Like the UN created the problem, and then they're measuring the problem that they created, and they're like, "Wow, this is actually like
No, but
this
this,
isn't so bad at all." Like
yeah,
and then
they are allowed to just put up whatever they want in terms of their projections, and we're going to get into more of why this is incorrect.
yeah,
But yeah, exactly right. Like, the UN investigated itself and found that it was blameless. Or
yeah,
not even that. The UN investigated the problem that the UN caused, which we're not going to talk about, and the UN found that the problem was a lot less than, it's okay.
it's not really a problem at all, really.
Mm.
you know, it
It's
took
a
somebody else on
solution
the
if
outside
you.
to say, "You know what? This is actually worse than we thought." But
Mm-hmm.
it's still not your fault, UN. It's not nothing to do with you. You guys just didn't do the math right. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so digging into the UN's model, Fernandez Villaverde found something even stranger. For nearly every low fertility country, the UN projects either one of two outcomes. The fertility rate will flatten, or it will rise to a number somewhere between 1 and 2 births per woman, still below replacement level, but not quite as catastrophic. The United States is in the first category. Our fertility rate has fallen steadily since the Great Recession, from 2.1 to 1.6. One might therefore expect the decline to continue, but the UN projects that the US birth rate will stay flat, not just this year, but also in 2026 and 2030 and 2060 and 2090, never rising above 1.7 or dipping below 1.6. I want a job at the UN. I mean, it sounds like really easy to do. I
You
can
just
just
make
lie.
things up. Yeah.
Yeah, I can just make shit
Well,
up and
they
get
have a
paid.
logic to this. It's just ridiculous. It's like the Chewbacca defense.
Did they explain the logic
Yes, they're going to
in
explain
the
the
in the
logic,
article?
and
Okay,
yeah, they do
we'll
explain the
get to it.
logic, so we can have a good chuckle over it. Yeah.
Okay, I kind of want to know what they're gonna how they're gonna explain this. In the other category are countries such as Thailand, whose fertility rate has been falling for 72 years and has never stopped for longer than a single year. Nonetheless, there are the UN pro the, net, the I'm sorry.
Nevertheless,
The UN projects a demographic miracle. Starting in 2 years, the country's birth rate will begin to climb, first slowly and then a little more quickly, finishing out the century with a birth rate of 1.45, up from its projected 2024 low of 1.2. Still not good though. So
well,
are
yeah,
they?
no, none of this is good news. It's
No,
just,
I'm.
it's just,
Oh, it's going to go up. It's going to go up, but it's still going to be below replacement.
it's just like the difference between you have your foot in a bear trap, and you're gonna have to cut your foot off to actually get out of it, or
Yeah,
you have your entire leg in a bear trap, and you're probably gonna have to cut your. Well, actually, no, you have your entire body up to the neck in a bear trap, and you're just gonna have to die.
yeah,
So this is sort of the good news is that only your foot is in the bear trap. That's the UN projections. The bad news that no, actually, it's your neck, and the
yeah.
UN is just lying to you. Oh man. Okay, let's
All
keep
right.
going.
Every part of that appears to be wrong. In reality, Thailand's reported birth rate last year was 0.98, and a preliminary 2025 data show the decline continuing. In a country the size of Thailand, the difference between the UN's projection and the real fertility rate throughout the 21st century will amount to millions of people who will never be born. All in all, as Fernandez Villaverde recently explained at a research symposium in London, humanity won't start to shrink in 2084. It'll start to shrink in 2055, if not sooner.
Probably sooner.
I'm thinking sooner too.
Yeah.
Unless something changes. Yes.
Yes,
Something
something
cultural
massive
has to
changes.
change.
Something
Yeah.
cultural has to change, and it has to be a massive and widespread change.
Mm-hmm.
And
It has to be
at some
infectious.
point,
Yeah.
developing nations and Latin America, I don't know, I guess the sort of middle nations between developing, at some point they're going to realize that first world nations are poaching their population.
Mm-hmm.
And that they're going to realize that, and the immigration may end up reversing. So people, and even not even because of ICE in the US, the immigration will end up reversing because the countries that they're immigrating to will have no economic opportunities, will be destabilized, and they'll just go back where they can be with their extended families and have economic opportunities, or at least the same amount. Right. So it may end up that, and also policies may, in those countries, may start to severely discourage immigration. Once they start their politicians start waking up to the fact that Western nations are dealing with their decline in birth rate by essentially poaching other populations. And I know that doesn't, like, I don't mean to offend anyone, but that is what we're doing. That's what politicians are doing. I mean, not Trump and on the right, but politicians on the left, and some, I guess, on the right, and certainly politicians in other nations are literally poaching other populations to try to deal with the fertility crisis in the West. And at some point, those populations are going to wise up and
Yeah.
realize that that's what's happening.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why I'm for, like, people like working on their home countries, because I'm not for all the immigration. And it is ultimately for their benefit as well. Yes.
Yeah, because
So,
they build up their own countries. And it's also ultimately, we need to solve this. Like, we need
mhm,
to have a solution. I have some suggestions that I think would help, and we'll get to that. But we need to solve this, and we need to solve it probably in Western nations that already have the advantage, significant advantages. Okay, so it's not going to
yes.
come from those nations that are already reproducing because they're in more subsistence level, nor is it going to come from the middle nations that have imploded. It's got to come from us,
Mhm.
in my opinion. Let's
Yeah.
continue.
Okay. All in all, as Fernandez Villaverde recently explained at a research symposium in London, humanity won't start to shrink in 2084. It'll start to shrink in 2055, if not sooner. There are two types of people, Alice Evans, a British professor who studies failing fertility around the world, posted on X after reading Fernandez Villaverde's presentation. Those not bothered about demographics, and those who've had Jesus or Jesus's slides. Not
Who've
Jesus.
read,
Yeah,
read
who've read. I'm
Jesus.
sorry. Those who've read Jesus's slides. The UN has a simple explanation for its optimistic projections. Fertility has rebounded in the past, so it will rebound again.
Not without a significant look at ourselves and what we're
Mhm.
doing. Okay, is not going to happen unless we employ some serious self-awareness and start analyzing what we're doing wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
it could rebound, right? Maybe there are ways to deal with at least some, like a population that doesn't have replacement, but still has the social and spiritual flexibility to deal with the future. Like, we could probably work out something that way, but not with what we're doing now.
Mhm.
Okay.
In Belarus, for example, the fertility rate in 1988 was at replacement level. It fell to an abysmal 1.22 only 9 years later, but then it rebounded all the way up to 1.73 by 2015. Australia's birth rate fell to 1.7 in 2001, only to bounce back to 2.0 in 2008. France's rate followed a similar trajectory during the same period, as did Italy's and Sweden's. To the extent you think the world population prospects are wrong, that is the extent to which you are saying this time is different. Lyman Stone, a PhD student and birth rate consultant, told me.
Okay. So essentially what's happened is there are some countries that did experience a recovery in their birth rates. So the UN, for absolutely no apparent reason, has decided that all countries will experience a recovery in their birth rate without analyzing why that recovery happened and if there are similar circumstances in those countries to encourage it.
Yeah.
The UN is just picking up the idiot ball and running with it right here.
Yep.
Okay, next paragraph.
Okay. The thing is, this time really does look different. Birth rates in Australia and France and Italy and Sweden have now fallen to all-time lows, excluding during World War I in France's case. Belarus, a one-time redemption story, recorded a fertility rate of just 1.1 last year, lower than the lowest lows the country experienced in the 1990s. Deaths outnumbered births by nearly 2 to 1. If a rebound is coming, there are no signs of it. Fernandez Villaverde estimates that the world is already below replacement fertility. The population is just not projected, but guaranteed to shrink if things don't change. That was not the case in the 1990s.
We had a chance. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, the UN is using these recoveries and they're assuming that that's going to be the case, even though the countries that they're looking at that recovered, many of them just went down. So it was what they call in like stock markets a dead cat bounce. So if the stocks hit the floor, you just imagine that the cat is dead and it bounces.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what happened with the fertility rate in these countries.
Yeah.
And again, there's no analysis as to why there might have been a rebound. Maybe those countries had traditional expectations or traditional systems that enabled it. Maybe there was a reduction. And some of those countries seem to have been communist and may have changed to not communist. Maybe that had something to do with it. So we got to look into why that happened. Can't just assume that it's going to happen everywhere magically. It's a lot of magical
the UN
thinking.
isn't, again, yeah, it's the UN we're talking about. So like
Lots
it's
of
not like
magical thinking.
yeah, they're not they no, it's true. They're literally like kind of a cult, but anyway, the UN's model hasn't adjusted to the new normal. If a country has ever experienced a fertility increase, as Australia and France and Belarus have, then its birth rate is assumed to be stable. If a country has never experienced an increase, then the model assumes that it will at some point once fertility gets low enough. In other words, the model assumes as its end state a stable and modest number of births. This is perhaps a reflection of humanistic optimism. There is at some point a minimum social capacity to adapt and eventually at least address some of the concerns or challenges that exist in that country. Patrick Gerland, the chief author of World Population Prospects, told me. The people living in those countries don't necessarily want their country to totally disappear.
Mm.
Yeah, but like the thing is, I don't think a lot of people are thinking about it in that macro scale. Like they're just looking at their life and they're saying, well, I'm going to say it. Women are like, I'm basically pursuing my career. I'm getting my bag. I'm like doing these. I'm not going to have kids. Kids are going to drag me down. Kids are going to hold me back. They're going to prevent me from like truly being liberated and free and independent. I'm not going to do that. I'm sure men are looking to have kids, but even when you are looking to have kids, you're not necessarily doing it because you're like, oh, I'm looking at the fertility rates in my country and we're below replacement. I got to make babies. No, I mean, men make babies because they have a biological drive to do it. And when women want it, they do too. But I think that women have been propagandized to not want kids or to think that they don't need them and put it off and wait or whatever. I mean, You ever see the movie? Everybody talks about Idiocracy, right? You ever see Idiocracy, Allison?
Mm-hmm.
The movie where they show like the smart couple and they're like putting off having kids, and then they're like talking
Yeah.
about freezing their eggs and their sperm and whatever. And what it was trying to say is that only dumb people are going to have babies, and therefore the world's going to be run by dumb people because dumb people are having babies. But I think that the mistake is not that. It was the smart people, or people who thought they were smart, holding off because they wanted to focus on their careers. And
Mm.
in particular, women doing that. And I say that because women's fertility is a window and there's only so much time, and they're told that they don't have to worry about that, and that, there are stories of women who are in their 60s that have babies, and they put that all over the news, so they're telling women it's okay, you can wait, but you can't wait. Like
Mm-hmm.
at least you should be. Let me put it another way. You should be taking it into serious consideration, because ultimately women are the gatekeepers of reproduction. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, that's a responsibility that women have, that we have essentially just erased. So, like, even me
Mm-hmm.
bringing it up could trigger people in our special chat, for example, that I would even say that. But it's true. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's true. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's,
How many methods do women have to prevent reproduction at this point? Sorry, guys, it's true. And
yeah.
and how much angst is over? I don't know. Texas even reducing one. Okay, let's do the next paragraph.
Okay. So
Oh, I think it's the middle of this paragraph.
yeah, I didn't finish it.
That's okay. It's a long paragraph.
Oh, no, I read the paragraph because this guy Patrick Gerlin was trying to say that, well, people don't necessarily want their country to disappear. Well, of course, people don't want that, but if they don't know that not having kids is actually disappearing your country, because they don't typically think in that scale. Like, they're just looking at their situation.
Yeah,
Me
this
and my relationships and my children. They're not looking at the big picture. So if they put it off, most likely when people don't have kids, like women don't have kids, they're just thinking, well, that other lady is going to have kids, so I'm not going to have kids. I don't have to do it. Somebody else is going to do it, right?
yeah.
And if everyone is doing that, if everybody's saying, well, I'm not going to do it, somebody else is going to do it, well, guess what? Nobody's done it.
Well, it's not even
So
like, honestly, when I listen to what women are saying, many of them are saying, "Well, I'm just going to get my bag. I'm going to enjoy my career. I'm going to enjoy my girlfriends and dating and having sex with a man that I find intensely sexually desirable, rather than someone I can actually get to commit to me." Because honestly, like literally, of course, women are going to feel intense sexual desire for a man who's like 4 freaking standard deviations of attractiveness above them. And our current dating landscape allows that. And then they compare that level of attractiveness to someone who is on their same level. And they're like, oh, wow, I don't even feel any attractiveness. Yeah, bullshit, lady. You've just experienced hedonic adaptation. Anyway, but
yeah.
this is why peasant girls weren't allowed to go after princes.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, no, you smell like pig shit and you have shoulders like an orc. No, thank you, lady. But anyway, all right. So ultimately, what I hear from women is that they don't have to do this. This is not their job, even though it is. It's literally their job. This literally your evolutionary appointed job, ladies, is to have children, just like it's men's evolutionarily appointed job to protect and provide for those children, and also engage in fatherly activities to raise them into functional adulthood, as we see from the statistics. So, but they say, no, I don't want to have children, or rather, they don't feel like they have any sense of loyalty to this culture, because this culture is a horrible patriarchy that's oppressed women since the dawn of time. And when I say, well, then you're essentially consigning to the trash bin of history the only culture that's given you rights, they say, well, those rights are the bare minimum. And we don't owe anybody anything for having offered them to us. And it's like you are making the explanation for why cultures disappear whenever they start to liberate women.
Mm-hmm.
and why women's liberation is inconsistent with evolution. Like, it's literally like, if you were like, yes, I am going to have children because I feel so much gratitude for all of the rights that this culture, I'm going to have so many children because I want to raise them in a culture that gives them rights. No, that's not what you're doing. You're saying, yeah, that was the bare minimum. I owe you nothing. Now I'm going to consign you to cultural extinction. Congratulations, ladies. You are why women don't get rights. These behaviors are why you don't get rights. And this is like, whenever I say this, women are like, oh, you just hate women. I'm like, no, you hate reality. Like, this is nothing. There's no hatred here. There is. If you do not have children in a society that gives you rights, that society is going to go extinct and being superseded by those societies that can breed. And if the only societies that can breed are the ones that put restrictions on women, they will win.
Yep.
That's it. You are doing this to yourselves, ladies. But you don't care because you're going to get your bag until it all collapses, right? Which, let's see, 2055, I think that's optimistic. We're probably looking at 2045, unfortunately. 2055 is 30 years from now. So I'm going to be in my 70s, right? You're going to be in your 80s, perhaps. My husband's going to be in his 80s. Okay, well, we're on the way out. Right, that's it. That's we're gonna be saying sayonara. We're gonna be sitting in our I don't know, with my with like 17 German shepherds and whatever Ryan's retirement plans are. That's gonna be it. We're out.
Be nursed by robots, probably.
Yeah, we're being nursed. Yeah, we're on the way out. Okay, ladies, if you're in your 20s now, in your 30s, you are going to be living through this collapse. So you're like, I'm going to get my bag. Well, congratulations. You're stealing your bag from your future self. So when you're in your 70s and 80s, there's not going to be a bag there. There's just going to be abject poverty. And guess what? Nobody's going to buy your ass.
Mm-mm.
So your contingency plan, not going to be there.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. To this point, the model comes with a hard-coded minimum. No country can ever be projected to have a fertility rate less than 0.5 children per woman. Like the rest of the model, this too might need to be revised. Macau, which the UN analyzes separately from mainland China, had a fertility rate of 1.2 a decade ago. Last year, it fell to 0.58, and it looks set to fall even further. In the first 4 months of 2025, births were down another 13%. If you're not sure why this is so alarming, consider Japan, the canonical example of the threat that low fertility poses to a country's economic prospects. Hey, I brought up Japan at the beginning of the show. I didn't know that I didn't read this article, so this is my live reaction to the article. At its peak in 1994, the Japanese economy made up 18% of world GDP, but eventually the country's demographics caught up with it. Now Japan's median age is 50 years old, and the country's GDP makes up just 4% of the global economy. That's a lot less. That's like less than a fourth. Yeah, of what it was. Measured per hours worked, Japan's economic growth has always been strong, but at some point, you just don't have enough workers. You mean men, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about men. You're talking about men mostly. Okay. The fertility rates that doomed the Japanese economy range from 1.3 to 1.5. So imagine what's in store for modern day California, which is at 1.06, and Chile, which is at 1.03. How will they grow with so few workers? How will they ever become rich if each worker is expected to provide for so many elderly people? The overly optimistic UN estimates have obscured just how urgent these questions really are. Because if the birth rate continues to drop around the world at its current pace, The economic growth and workers' retirement prospects will go the way of those projections, adjusting every few years to smaller, sadder, poorer future. Is that the end? They don't give me the why. They're just saying
No,
it's
of
bad.
course not. Well, we have to go somewhere. We're gonna go to base camp for the why. I mean, I already knew the why because I had this discussion a while back.
Yeah, we talked about it on the show a couple times.
Yeah, we talked about it on the show, but I mean, I figured that it'd be nice to have something to respond to. So
no, it's good. I'm glad that they're saying this. Well, I mean, now it comes out like, okay, this is the Atlantic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So of course they're not going to address the why.
No.
Like, because it's like they support the why. They just don't think there's a connection between the why and what's happening. They're probably thinking like, how can we blame men for this? That's what but they couldn't do it. Like, we can't find anything. You know what? Let's just put the info out there and hope nobody asks questions, but they panic appropriately and give us clicks. Anyway, I got a super chow from Gary Thomas for 5, and he says, I had a friend who lived in New York City, was a grad student, and had planned on having maybe one child while balancing her academic career. She is 38 now, has been married for over a decade, just gave birth to twins, has 5 other offspring with her husband, and lives on a farm in a rural farm in Georgia. According to her, once she started having children, she didn't want to stop. Unfortunately, she is an outlier in my friend group. Yeah, I mean, again, like, I'm not, when I talk about the birth rate, some people, I won't name any names, but some people on the X, they think I'm making a command to women to have babies, or I'm, essentially prescribing that women have lots of babies. I'm not. I never was. But what the thing is that women are making decisions about their fertility based on bad information. So what I'm saying is that they should have the correct information and then make a decision. I don't think that, all women should all have children, because I don't think that that's, some women are just not cut out to be mothers. Some men are not cut out to be fathers. But what I'm saying is that before we decide like what we're going to chase down in our life, we should know what is actually the potential outcomes and options and what they really mean, right? So I'm not making like the go out and have babies argument. I'm saying, if you're thinking about waiting, or if you've been told you should wait, or if you've been told that, kids suck or they're not important, or you're just ingesting all of this antinatalist propaganda that's basically everywhere, it's ubiquitous, maybe you should question it and then look into what the facts are and then decide after that. So that's it. I'm not necessarily going either way. I mean, I'm generally pro family because I think that we need enough people to maintain civilization, and that requires some people to have babies, at least a significant number, enough to I wouldn't even say to maintain the birth rate, but like, steadily increase it. But yeah, I mean, that I'm not making demands of women. So
yeah, well, I mean, we don't have to, because the solution, well, let's talk about it. One of the big ones. Okay, because I had an extended discussion with this on with a feminist.
We're gonna do that now, or are you gonna go to base camp, or what?
Let's go to base camp. Let's see what they have.
We're gonna look at this video from base camp, Malcolm and Simone, and it's got an interesting title. Wait, the men's rights movement is working, and Also,
I just want to point something out. Like, we do have to pause it about every 15 seconds and make some comment. Because
okay, well, do you have time codes?
Yes, start at the beginning. I do have time codes.
All right,
start at the beginning. We'll start at the beginning.
Let me make sure the sound is working on this real quick.
Hello,
and I will.
Yeah, it is working. Okay.
Hello, Malcolm. I'm so excited to be speaking with you today because we are going to talk about men striking back. That didn't come across.
Striking back, yeah. Well,
they're fighting for their rights, and they're finally making progress. All right, men have been basically.
Yep, we're starting to see shared custody initiatives in the US, so that is progress. All right, continue.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, she's I mean, we've been doing this for a while. I would hope that we would make some kind of impact by now.
Mm,
So
yeah, 10 years
Men's
plus.
rights is
what?
We've been doing this for 10 years plus.
Yeah.
actually making progress now.
That's the crazy thing is that for the past 15 years, the concept of men's rights has basically been like men being angry about the fact that they don't have any rights. I guess this might have been how.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
wonder-
a pedant here, but I maybe I'll talk to them about it because I can get Malcolm and Simone on the show. I have a decent rapport with them. Whatever.
Rapport.
Yeah, we
I
talk.
got another one.
I know. I'm like out of sorts today, man.
Yeah. Well,
Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know. Maybe it's
season.
Halloween or
It's
something,
the
but I'm
spooky
not
season.
doing well
I
in
got
the
a
brain
question.
area. I'm
I
not
just-
thinking good today.
I got a personal question. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So JoJo, has JoJo been like sensing things in your apartment?
I don't know what you mean.
Well,
No.
okay, I'll explain from my animals. So, like a couple days ago, Scipio was growling at the ceiling, like a spot in the ceiling,
Yeah.
and he's getting like really really agitated. And we were trying to figure out what the heck he was reacting to, and we couldn't see anything. And then the cats started to react to things in the kitchen as well. So we're like, do we have mice? Or spooky spooks? Like, do we have? Are we have a poltergeist or something? The animals are
Maybe.
reacting to something, you know.
Maybe. Well,
Yeah.
no, we don't have any ghouls or specters in our house because JoJo has not. Either that or he's a terrible ghost hunter.
Medium.
But if you guys understand the rules of dogs, they know about the supernatural. They're tuned in because they always bark at demons and ghosts and shit. So I guess we don't have any.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that he sometimes just reacts to strange things. Apparently, we once went to a dog trainer, and apparently there's a corner that all the dogs react to, and it's just like she speculates that maybe there's like spectral activity in that corner or something, but all of the dogs react to it in terms of
Isn't there like a Lovecraftian monster that lives in corners and it's a dog? It's like it enters our plane through corners. It's like some Lovecraft monster. I bet somebody in the chat knows. I forget what it's called, but it's like a dog, like a other dimensional beast that's dog-like.
Okay.
Okay, but anyway.
Okay, all right. This is a bit of a side. So
yeah, so let's keep going. But yeah, the pedantic thing I was gonna say is that I know that rights is like this word that gets used is kind of the catch-all for things that are not really rights, but I do tend to fixate on that because I think that it's important we use the right words. Because when you say, like, when the feminists labeled us men's rights activists, the point of it was to make it sound absurd
and silence.
Because technically we have most of the rights. There are some rights that men don't have that women have, like bodily autonomy, which is probably a big one. But the thing is, you don't want to get caught up in like the way feminists describe rights is like rights to like, healthcare, rights to abortions, rights to be able to walk home at night without getting raped, things like that are completely silly. Rights to other people's labor, which is essentially like the entitlement of a slave owner, but that's what feminists describe as rights. And I don't think MRAs do. Some probably do. They have like their idea of it, and I think it's incorrect. And to me, anyway, it's important that we use the right terms. But I basically get where Simone's coming from. Anyway,
well,
oh, go ahead.
No, let's do a little bit more.
Okay.
Women's rights for the longest time of like, well, ain't that cute? You guys are so disgruntled about your lack of rights. It's never going to change, sweetie.
No, and I love what they would always then say. They'd be like, well, that's actually a feminism issue.
Well, actually, having had these arguments for like 25 years, is it 25 yet? No, like 22. they would essentially get absolutely infuriated and say, men have all the rights.
Or they would just
And
laugh. They
yeah,
would just laugh at the idea. You
yeah.
know,
And
I
then,
had a thing on X, a back and forth, that I thought was interesting. Let me see if I can find it. People got really mad at me, but there was a woman who made a post on X, essentially kind of taking the piss out of Jordan Peterson, but the purpose of it was to say that women she said that women are soldiers for the globalist agenda and they are on the frontier of feminizing and castrating their men. But she was trying to blame people like Jordan Peterson for not doing enough or something. And I said, even if men invented feminism, women chose to go along with it, because she was trying to
Mhm.
say that feminism isn't women. Feminism is something men created. So it's kind of like blaming men. And I was like, no, I mean, like, sure, even if you say like these men or whatever, these the Kabbalists or whoever it is that put it out there, even if you're right, it doesn't matter, because women said, yes, we'll take that. And they went with it. And they did
Yeah.
it for decades, if not generations. And then somebody replied to me and said, this older woman, and she said, sure, what sane person would choose to be a slave for all practical purposes? So essentially saying this is why women chose feminism. And I said, slave, what do you mean? And she said, I mean slave, a person who is the property of another person, which is what the de facto legal situation up until 50 years ago. Wives were de facto property to their husbands. And I said, this is a pretty insane claim to make. Does this mean that your father or grandfather effectively enslaved your mother or grandmother? And she said, well, that was a legal situation at the time. So yes, the man being the head of the household, taking all the decisions formally and legally. And I said, so you think your father and your grandfather were oppressors that enslaved your mother and your grandmother? Do you see how unhinged you sound? And she said, the laws at the time were unhinged then. I don't make them. I just tell you what they were. So, and then I said, what laws are you talking about? Because you're saying it was the law. Can you tell me specifically what laws allow men to own women? And then she replied, for instance, the one that allows a woman to open a bank account only if the husband agrees to it. Not having access to money limits options extremely. And I said, husbands were responsible for the wife's debts, and women usually manage the finances in the home anyway. Who makes the money matters very little compared to who the money is spent on. And she just stopped talking to me after that.
Of course,
And
they
it
don't have
was
any
just like,
answer.
what?
They don't have any answer.
No.
And
And
it's
then
actually,
they tried this. Well, yeah, men had all the rights all through history. No, that's silly. Men took care of women.
just sick.
Well, actually, there was a period where, the dowry period, where women brought something to the table that wasn't themselves, and men brought something to the table, and that was those were the conditions that brought those two together. And the whole dating thing is very recent. So, and I think that it's a disaster. I mean, just based on what I've seen, unless you're meeting under certain circumstances where your values are like at the top, like in a church, for example. But like just like on Tinder swiping, no, I that's a disaster. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the outcomes. So
All
hounds
right.
of Tindalos, thank you. Yes, they live inside of angels. Okay.
Angles.
Those were they live inside of angles, as you do. Yes.
Yes.
The hounds of Tindalos.
Okay, let's just keep going.
I got another super chow. Great indoors. Looks like our chat is starting to wake up now.
Mm.
$5. I'm sure most will remember back in January 2020 how the COOF was still just a right-wing xenophobic talking point with the potential to cause panic and was not to be taken seriously at all, only to develop into a scaremongering talking point for the left while pushing their authoritarian battle plan to stop the spread. Now that our moral betters have come to realize that their dystopian vision of overpopulation need to be course corrected by doing sudden handbrake U-turn, I shiver to think what kind of draconian measures the global intelligentsia will conjure up next. A lot of subsidies, taxes, and other forced interventions are looming on the horizon.
None of which work.
Another crisis, I would suspect. But go ahead.
None of those work. But let's just get some more, because I know that you have a time constraint. So let's.
I do. So what do you want me to listen more of the intro? Or do you want to jump?
Yeah, just listen to more of the intro.
Okay.
Like, well, then how come the feminists never fight for it? And they're like, once you're in cages, then we'll fight to loosen the what do they call that? The zip ties.
Yeah, I just basically I was operating under the assumption that nothing would ever change, but things are actually starting to change, and this is big. It's huge. And so what we're going to do is look at two major areas where finally the dam is beginning to break, and I think momentum is only going to build from here. We're going to
okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that once I also believe honestly that things have, if you look at it, and it's been tough, but I think that things will start to accelerate like exponentially. I think that we've done a lot in it feels like a long time for our lifetime, but when you think about how much damage we're trying to reverse, it's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Say so yourself.
Maybe just chipping away at it every day made a difference.
Yeah.
Like this is freaking 10
the
years,
talking points
guys.
are out there now. The talking points are out there, and I think that I don't know. There's definitely more than a few MRAs making content, but I think that we have been the most consistent in pushing stuff out, even if our channel remains small. And that was despite all the struggles. You know, like Mike, who used to have like a channel that should have been in the multi-million subscribers by now. YouTube absolutely hamstringed him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
and he can't he's not making any money on it anymore. And you know, Paul has sort of like slowed down. Like he still makes content every so often. And Janice and Tom Golden and some of them, but I think that we've been the most consistent in terms of like just like what you know,
hammering away at it. Hammering away at it day after day.
Yeah, and like
after
talking
day.
to people and trying to get them to think about these issues. I mean, we, you know, like I said, I'm definitely gonna try and get Malcolm and Simone back on. I've had talked to them. I had the pleasure of talking to them a couple of times. So I want to talk to them because they're doing really well.
Where they're at, eh?
Yeah.
On the journey. But yeah, it's okay. Let's finish off this segment so that we can get to the reason that the Atlantic will not mention, or the potential solutions.
States where by the new default is the new default. Shocking. Men get 50% of custody in divorces.
Physical custody. 50% physical custody. That's the default. And there are now states, Kentucky, and I think maybe Texas is looking into it, or maybe Texas is just talking about the this stuff related to abortion, which I don't really want to focus on, because I think that the shared custody is really what applies to the birth rate. So there are states now that are instituting a presumption of physically shared custody. Okay. And while I think that's great, I think we also have to consider that can be rolled back. And there are currently feminist organizations, often funded by divorce lawyers, who are trying to get this rolled back, and they are using the usual narratives to do it. Spousal violence, marital rape, men being bad fathers, abusive fathers. They're using these narratives to do it. So it's really critical to make sure that you have the materials necessary to oppose those narratives. And again, the materials necessary to oppose those narratives is a comprehensive understanding around the stats regarding rape and domestic violence, and how there is a extremely plausible position that women engage in these activities equally. And I mean both of them, right? So that feminists have absolutely no leg to stand on when they try to use domestic violence in particular to reduce men's rights during marriage and divorce. No leg to stand on whatsoever. And I would like to point out that the biggest red flag when you're looking at statistics is this. Feminist statistics see a 2 to 4 times. So in feminist statistics, the number of male victims that are identified by statistics created by feminism are 2 to 4 times less than non-feminist research into domestic violence and sexual assault. How is that possible? The answer is feminists cook the books when it comes to domestic violence and sexual assault, and they cook the books because these are their big weapons to slant divorce and laws around marriage or policies around marriage, domestic violence and marriage in the favor of women, presumably, right? They slant these things in the favor of women. Of course, on the other side, they also sacrifice women to maintain the narrative. So they're trying to repel this stuff. They're trying to get rid of it. And they're using these narratives to do so. And why is it that they always laughed at the idea of men's rights? Because that's what they're stripping.
Yes.
And they're using the narrative of male malfeasance, this absolutely disgusting narrative that men use rape and domestic violence. They're using that narrative to strip men of their rights. Full stop. So we gotta keep our ducks in a row. We gotta have our talking points to make sure that they are not allowed to get their claws back into policy and start reversing these. And it is absolutely critical. This battle is absolutely critical because it is the battle for the human future. And you'll see why as we go a little bit further.
Yeah. I also want to mention, not on this news show we just did, but the news show that I did the week before, I covered 2 other states that are they're making progress towards presumed shared custody as well. That would be the state of Arizona and Philadelphia. So we're also, Pennsylvania, not Philadelphia is a city. Pennsylvania and Arizona. So yeah, I think that we're going to see more of this. I hope. And you mentioned Texas, and there are other states that are like just starting to look into this stuff. Like they're on like the early stages. So yeah, it looks like it's, I think it's fantastic. So
yeah. And it's not just fantastic for men's issues. I don't know if Simone and Malcolm covered the whole thing, but let's let them finish here, and then I'll move you to a different time code.
All right.
What states is this happening? If
Yeah,
it's actually happening and not just like in the law.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's also just crazy to me that like isn't always the default. Like the assumption that like, well, of course each parent shares custody by default, right? Unless there's a good reason not to. But
No,
that wasn't the case, and it's being resolved. It started with Kentucky, and now it's happened in more states. We're going to look at sort of what's going on there. And then we're
so move to 315 because they move into like the Texas heartbeat law, and I'm like, as much as that would be an interesting conversation, we are restricted in time, so I'm going to keep it to the shared parenting.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, if I guess like a combination of common sense, restrictions on abortion. I mean, like I think that there is room for compromise. I just think that the pro-abortion people are not willing to do that. But if you have some of that and 50-50 shared parenting, you'll see like dramatic changes in a family formation, at least, right?
Many people in the comments of our videos have said, hey, like, please highlight this issue of the men's rights sphere, which we'll see if you can guess. So let's get into it, starting with the Kentucky divorce laws. And just so you know, there's a really good Wall Street Journal article talking about this, titled "Divorce Plunged in Kentucky, Equal Custody for Fathers is a Big Reason Why. A law setting 50-50 shared custody as the state standard was hailed as a victory for fathers, but critics say it puts mothers and children at risk."
Exactly. Right there. Then this is where they're going to try to push back. So get your facts in order and make sure that you have them, and make sure that you have the ability to do the arguments that neutralize it, because this is where they get you. This is where feminists, in particular, feminists get conservatives, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get them under this narrative of male malfeasance, because conservatives see the male role as protection and provision of women, and they are keyed to violations of that role and condemning women or men based on violations of that role. Well, you got to kick that out and start to realize that men also are vulnerable in relationships, and their vulnerabilities, you need to understand them because they are the counter argument to the feminist nonsense about domestic violence and sexual assault, and that they should be the divorce lawyers should continue to have their cash cow because men are so evil to their children and wives. That is the argument. And conservatives need to be able to push back. And the big blind spot that conservatives have in these issues is that they hold men to the standard of leadership and provision and protection, but they do not see that men need the support to be able to fulfill that role.
Yes.
And you need to be, and part of that support is being able to recognize the vulnerabilities that men have in relationships and recognize that they also get abused, they also get sexually exploited. Therefore, and that completely defangs the feminist narrative that is trying to destroy relationships. Okay. And has this unholy alliance with divorce lawyers. Let's be frank. When I asked Grok, what is the annual revenue that feminists command? It basically came back with, well, a bunch of stuff, but also the annual revenue from divorce. So Grok was making this association between feminists and divorce lawyers. And that is, if I haven't drilled down on it, but I will probably, if I did, I would find out where that's coming from. And it likely is a collusion between those organizations, feminist organizations and divorce lawyer organizations. And why? Because divorce is the cash cow of divorce lawyers. And a lot of them are feminists because they know what side their bread is buttered on. Okay.
Yep. All right. You want me to play more of this, or is there
Yeah,
another
play
time?
more of this because we got up to like 6 minutes here.
Okay.
Happened in Kentucky. And this is important because it happened in 2018. So we have enough time to see what has happened since this legislation was passed. But Kentucky in 2018 became the first state to pass a law making equally shared custody the default arrangement in divorces and separations. And since that happened, 4 other states, so this is Arkansas, West Virginia, Florida, and Missouri, have passed their own versions of this custody bill. And
Okay, so that's not even the ones I mentioned. So the ones I mentioned, Arizona and Pennsylvania, they're in the they're preparing. I think they're about to, alter these, but these have already done it. So let's see what the results have been.
Yeah.
20 more states. Keep in mind, there are only 50 US states
Yeah.
are considering or close to passing similar laws, according to analysis by National Parents Organization. That is big. I mean, if this quickly, we're already getting to...
Right. So how quickly did the first one go to passing to 20 states being considered?
Okay, we can skip forward a little bit
Okay.
to 439.
Well, that's literally like right there. But okay.
Oh,
Like I don't think I can go. Okay, right. Whatever. We're gonna play it from here.
Passing to 20 states being considering it now.
Well, I mean, it's 2025 now, and that was 2018. So
7 years.
6 years. 7
pretty
years.
I remember in 2018, I said that our society was going to crater along the lines that men's rights point out. So in other words, we are pointing out the problems that society has. And I actually said this probably even earlier than that men's rights activists, we don't have a men's issues problem because we are contending with these issues. Society has a men's issues problem because it isn't. And I said that I know for sure I said it in 2018, but before then, but it is heartening to see that there is now political will behind recognizing this.
Yep.
Okay. And let's get a little bit further in. Yep. Yeah.
I mean, from a legislative standpoint, it's kind of like,
Are we seeing a changing in outcomes though? Like, do you see any?
We are. And I'm also going to compare sort of this change in outcomes to China, because we did do an episode on like China trying to reduce divorce rates and increase fertility rates through
China already has substantially different family laws. So, for example, China does not have community property laws. When you divorce, you get back what you put in, and that is it.
Yeah.
So if a woman is a stay-at-home, she gets back exactly what she put in financially. Too bad, so sad. And I believe that custody is shared. So children are shared, community property is not. And you know, like it's funny how a lot of the communists, feminist communists really like China.
Yeah.
I don't think you would
Well,
like.
I don't. I look. I'm China. I don't know because you know they're not very like open with the way they run things. I do know that they definitely have a communist party running the government, but
Mhm.
I don't think that means that the actual country is communist, right? Like I think that it's not like
It's a
North
weird.
Korea.
Yeah,
It's a hybrid because they have to make stuff and they have to sell stuff.
yes,
And so, you know, like they are still producing, they produce a lot. So I don't think it's quite a communist country. I think they would like to say it is because they want to point to something that is a successful, you know, like a
communist country.
successful model, but I don't think it is. I think that the reason why it still, you know, is and well, anyway, that's a secondary thing.
Yeah,
But I
let's
think
move
that
on.
they're definitely a communist party in charge, but they're like sort of compromising with
Yeah, this
other
is really secondary. Let's get back because you
organisms.
got the
Yeah, I
restriction.
know. I'm sorry.
And I think you'll also find that quite interesting. But let's just start with what happened in Kentucky. And what's interesting is because now in Kentucky we have enough data, the divorce rate plummeted. Between 2016 and 2023, it fell 25%.
Whoa, so it's not just outcomes are changing, divorce rates. When you make women responsible, they stop getting divorces. 20% reduction just because 50-50 custody law?
Yes,
25%.
and here's the thing. The reason why the divorce plummeted is because shared custody, when women realized they would have to share custody, suddenly all of the irreconcilable differences became reconcilable. Right? If women weren't granted winner takes all in divorce, suddenly they realized, oh hey, maybe the fact he hangs the toilet paper the other way around isn't irreconcilable. Maybe the fact he snores isn't irreconcilable. Maybe the
Yep.
fact he sleeps on his sofa, you know, at 5, and that really makes me irate because I want him to be up and working. That's not irreconcilable. Like suddenly the bar for irreconcilable differences raises a bit. And most of those divorces didn't happen as a result of abuse. Again, it was irreconcilable differences. That is the predominant reason why women have been divorcing. And when you simply put a little bit of a change, and this is a change that is beneficial to children and fathers, and you know what else it's been? Ironically, and this is going to floor people, women indicate a greater level of happiness with shared custody arrangements than previous. They're happier. The children are happier. The men are happier. Everyone is happier except the feminists and the divorce lawyers. When we're happier, those people are not happy because I don't know, the divorce lawyers don't get their second Porsche. You know, they don't get to upgrade their pool. Whatever else, and the feminists don't get to have the ability to destroy other people's relationships through false narratives. You know, that their ability to stick their noses into things and make people miserable, and then justify it as, oh, you would be more miserable if patriarchy was allowed to make your choices for you. Right? This all goes away. Everybody else is happier, but they're not. But why are we continuing to structure society? Like I said a while back, why are we allowing feminists to define the relationship between men and women spiritually, socially, economically, legally, in terms of policy, and in terms of all of these things? Why are we allowing this? Right? And then they're saying, oh, we're going to define all of these things for our benefit at the apparent expense of everyone else. So yes, shared custody makes everyone happy, except the feminists and their pals, the divorce lawyers. Okay.
Okay. Should I play more of this?
Yeah, a little bit more. I have one last. I have one last thing that I really want to bring in that brings these two things together. So let's finish this time code.
Okay.
This is tempered by the fact that there has actually been a nationwide decline in divorce of 18%. So, we're talking about a marginal 7%, but that's meaningful.
Huge.
That's huge.
Well,
And this is
but also the national divorce rate decline could also be because shared custody initiatives are going around everywhere now. So, it's difficult to disentangle this, but yeah. And also the national divorce rate, we'd have to look at the national marriage rate, because the national marriage rate is declining, then the divorce rate's going to decline.
I was going to say, like, it depends on how many people are getting married
Yes.
to begin with, because we know that men are not dating, they're not talking to women, they're not approaching women. So the few that are probably like more committed. So then so it's a matter of like how many people are getting married based on, or how many people getting divorced based on how many have already gotten married. So that might be a lower number because of the fact that like only the people who are really gonna make it work are the ones attempting. So
okay, so let's see. The Kentucky marriage rate compared to the national average is about the same now, but in 2021 it was 6.3 to 5.1. In 2020 it was 4.9 to 3.6. So up to 2020, it seems like Kentucky actually had a higher marriage rate than average than the US generally. So I could probably look back further. I could ask, what is for the last 10 years?
But this preliminary my guy's here to drop off the stuff, but how about this?
Okay.
I'll turn off my camera. You get those statistics. I'll take care of this and come back here.
Okay,
good. I can stay for a little bit longer.
Okay, sure.
All right. So I'll be right back, guys. Sorry about this. Go ahead, Allison.
So Kentucky's average for marriage has exceeded the US average at least 6 years for the last 10, substantially too. So if it was lower, but never as much as it was higher, essentially. So this is something that's significant. This is something that's very significant, it looks like, especially in the last few years. Actually, it looks like it's roughly the same. So take that for what you will. It seems like it's been in the last few years, it's actually been higher, but for the last 10 years, it's about the same. Anyway, so this may be something that is substantially, like, even more significant than what they're saying. I have to look a little bit more closely at it because I'm getting some inconsistencies with Grok, which means that it's drawing from different sources that may not have the same methodologies. So take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, so but the overall point is that there is a substantial, or at least, 7% out of 25 is almost 1/3. So we're looking at a substantial decrease in Kentucky. And then we have to also include the other portions of this, which is that there are more shared parenting initiatives going out in the US, which will reduce the marriage rate or the divorce rate overall throughout the US based just on that. Okay. But there is even more interesting stuff that's going on. And of course, I don't know if I should wait till Brian gets back or tell you. Guys, give me an idea. Let me see if there's any super chows, actually. Nope, there's no additional. Send in some super chows so I have something to do while I'm waiting for Brian to come back. And then we can talk about how we're going to tie all of this together. Because Kentucky's shared parenting law does have a connection to the birth rates. And I think it's absolutely critical to talk about that, because it has a lot of implications for how we can solve this issue. And again, it has a lot of implications for what I was talking about years ago, that society It's not men's issues advocates that have men's issues problem. It's society that has men's issues problem. Men's issues advocates are the ones who have the solution. And what I mean by that is all of us here that can talk about these things, that can exist in a space where we're not constantly absolving women of responsibility, and exist in a space that can recognize men's vulnerabilities without losing our shit. We are the people who are capable of dealing with men's issues, of advocating for men's issues, for holding people to the grindstone on these issues. It's like we just have this natural ability to deal with something that other people find utterly toxic. Like they just don't, like I said, we're just some strange prototype, some mutant, high-powered mutants of some kind. We got gills, we can breathe underwater. Nobody else can do it. Other people, this stuff is it just makes them shut down and turn off and flip inside out and screech and and implode and try to force you away as quickly as possible. And it's because they're too damn weak to hold it. They're too damn weak to look at it. They're too damn weak to analyze it. And yet this is the problem that our society is facing. So that's why I say the solution comes from us. The solution has to come from us. It has to come from everybody listening to me now. It has to come from me and Brian, because we can actually look at the problem. We can actually analyze the problem. It doesn't induce existential terror in us. Like we're not screaming at the sight of Cthulhu like the rest of the freaking world. And yeah, that is demonstrating a weak-mindedness. I'm going to come out and say it. It's weak-minded. And the reason why I started talking about this is because I had people who come and they'd be despairing over these issues and ever getting them faced. And I told them to frame it in a different way. Okay, yeah, this is painful stuff. It's extremely painful. But you're getting gains because you're learning to manage it emotionally in a way that other people just can't. Right? For whatever reason, we have a natural athleticism when it comes to men's issues. And it's really our responsibility to exercise it and develop it as much as possible, because we are the frontline soldiers when it comes to these issues. We're the ones who can identify it, and there are ones who can carry it because it's a heavy burden, right? So yes, it's painful, but it's pain with a purpose. It's the pain of exercising a natural talent and developing it. And again, the world, like the West, like our cultures, our societies that we live in, our friends and families, they aren't going to save us by solving men's issues. We're going to save them by advocating for them and making sure they're never forgotten or brushed under the rug like feminists want to do, like we're seeing with the shared custody initiative. Of course, there are criticisms because feminists want to regain control over divorce. They want to continue to advocate for their policies and procedures because they give them power over people. And of course, because their friends, the divorce lawyers, gain a lot of money from them. You're scared of Cthulhu, just saying, okay, but are you scared of men's issues? Because men's issues exist, Cthulhu does not. All right, get those super chows in, guys. feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And also remember, we are doing our monthly fundraiser, so help us out at feedthebadger.com/support. And I'm going to look at okay. We got a big support that I should probably thank. And I'll do that now. You'll just have to wait while I log into WordPress, which is always, it's always a bit of an adventure, WordPress. You never know what you're going to get. Okay, so let us see what we got here. And I do want to make sure to thank this dude because, as you will see, it is substantial. I wish I had access to like the things that Brian used to do with those little thank you. All right, so I'm going to just go with Jeff. I want to do a big thank you to Jeff for $1,000 put to the fundraiser at feedthebadger.com/support. Thank you. So we're funded. Big thanks to Jeff, guys. Put some thanks in the chat. Yeah, we're good. because we had $700 and now we're fully funded. So either it was my yapping that convinced Jeff, or he was always going to help us out. Either way, thank you, Jeff. Big thanks. Thank you for forwarding the cause of recognizing that society needs to actually deal with these issues. And again, guys, you're not the ones with the men's issues problems. Society is. You're the ones that are going to help them fix it, because you can actually deal with the sight of them without running and pissing your pants. Stubborn people, stubborn men, stubborn women. Pride yourselves on that. Give yourself a pat on the back for that. Let's see if Brian's back. No, he's still this is like I guess that he's getting a dining room set, so that's going to take a while, I'm guessing, because dining room set have multiple things in them. So I could just imagine Brian arranging everything in his dining room. So we may have to chatter for a little bit. So I'll look at the chat with you guys, see what you're saying. Any super chows? And Jeff, if you want to say anything, just tag me, and you don't have to put it through for that. You just give me a tag and I'll. All right, so let's see what you guys are saying. Take that with a grok of sand. Yeah, I always take grok with a grok of sand, because grok sometimes gets into some interesting conundrums. Not so much anymore, because they did an upgrade onto grok, which makes it rely more on empirically sound data. So it went from spouting off all kinds of crap from feminist sources to actually citing evo-psych sources, which I've had this discussion with an individual who's currently pursuing a PhD in criminal science. evo-psych is the competitor for the definition of the relationship between men and women relative to feminism. And when I say evo-psych, it's actually the academic arm. So it is pretty rigorous. It's got empirical merit. Feminism has none. All feminism has right now is what Perplexity AI terms authority, because it has multiple citations, and the people who are creating these papers are considered authorities in the subject area. So the subject area is the relationship between men and women. Feminists came in and colonized that, and academia were like, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead. Well, do whatever you want with that. And feminists were like, yes, thank you. We will use the perception of the relationship between men and women to pursue our own ends, and those ends will be political control and money. And we don't give a crap about what anybody else. We don't give a. Not only do we not give a crap about men, we also don't give a crap about women. We will pursue the interests of feminism, the interests of our ideology. It's sort of like Islamists pursue the interests of their version of Islam. Same difference. So they just redefined the relationship between sexes to just basically be whatever feminism needed it to be at the time to do what feminism wanted. And they said this, and academia was like, sure, yeah, knock yourselves out. That can't possibly go wrong for us or for all of human society. No, that sounds awesome. Let's do that. Yeah, we're not going to say no. We're not even going to give you any oversight. You can create as much empirically, and you can create as much false and misleading bullshit as you want, and we will sign off on it. We'll let you continue to grow like a cancer. Have at. And also, politicians love feminism. Divorce lawyers and politicians love feminism, because feminism makes them feel like they're doing anything aside from stealing from real people. Oof. Was that okay?
All right, I'm back. So we can go till about 3 if you want.
I don't want to go till 3.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no. 3 is in 23 minutes. I thought you meant 3 my time.
No. Until
hours.
Yeah, like we can go until the top of the hour if you want, because the guy showed up a little bit earlier than I thought, but he was willing to help me carry the table inside, so it made it easier. I saw that thing and it was like bigger than I thought. So
Metallica says, men's issues don't scare me quite as much as the average normie's ability to listen to my well thought out arguments, only to mentally throw them out the very next second. Yes, isn't that fascinating? Like you can talk to a normal person and you'll explain everything, right? And then they'll just, the next second, they just default back onto, what they've been trained to vomit forth from their pie
100%.
holes.
Well,
Yeah.
because it's way too challenging to their worldview.
Oh,
I get
yes.
it. It's
Yes.
so hard. It's because they even if they don't like things the way they are, they're comfortable with them being the way they are. Even if you it's hard, man. But
Yeah.
I got a super chow from Betty
Okay.
Adams just now. Thank you, Betty. And she gives us $10 and says, could what is different about us men's issues people have to do with being low in politeness and high in compassion? I recall that your big five personality test results show that you were, and I know mine were. If there is a massive cultural pressure to extend more compassion to women than men, then being low in politeness might allow us to ignore that to some degree. While if we are high in conscientiousness, our sense of justice would demand men get their fair share of compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem with the Big Five personality test is it conflates two aspects of compassion that end up making that element of the Big Five, I think, lose a lot of its explanatory power. And what I mean by that is there's being polite and then there's being compassionate, right? So people will be polite in order to maintain their own, in many cases.
Agreeableness, isn't it?
Yeah, they're agreeable.
Agreeableness we're talking
Well,
about?
yeah, yeah, agreeableness, but agreeableness has compassion and politeness. People can be
Yeah.
polite out of selfishness because they simply don't want to, they don't want to bear the cost of truth.
Right.
But people who are low in politeness but high in compassion will bear the cost of saying the truth as they see it, regardless of how much social pressure they have to be polite. And the problem is that the Big Five conflates those two things, and it's capturing completely different things. It's actually also capturing things completely, like mentally. People who are who express politeness versus compassion, those they occupy different parts of the brain. Okay, so social, like adhering to what is expected of you socially, is not a form of compassion. It's a form of conformity that is intended to get what you want out of other people, right? I mean, in a certain degree, politeness can be considered compassionate if it's a situation where you are foregoing your own interests in order to benefit another person, but that's not always the case. So the social conformity doesn't necessarily have anything to do with actually compassion. So I would say the Big Five agreeableness is not a really good metric of anything. That section on agreeableness. But yeah, so I scored low in politeness, I think surprising no one, and high in compassion. So if I feel like there is a lie that is inhibiting a person from a benefit that they would get if they don't believe the lie, I'm very likely to point out what the truth is, even if they hate me for it. And I mean, that even goes beyond compassion to the fact that I really, really detest people lying to themselves or people lying to others. I really detest lies. Now, some of that, like, I really had a problem with white lies. You know, as I get older, I think I've gotten a little bit more okay with them because I've realized that when people engage in white lies, it is a form of compassion. They're trying to make you feel better. It's just that I'd rather the truth, even if it pisses me off, you know? And I really can't stand the feeling of being handled. Like often people will use a white lie, or they'll use like politeness, a polite thing, in order to soften the blow. And to my autistic brain, that feels manipulative. But, you know, like I said, I've tried to not follow the autism as much as I get older. But anyway, that's me. And yes, I think it is true. I think people here probably are low on politeness, high on compassion, or at the very least high on wanting there to be consistency and principles and truth. which you can want even without necessarily being high on compassion. Right. So I think, yeah, I mean, honestly, we're the stubborn ones. We're the ones who refuse to step away. Like everybody here who's continued to listen to us day after day after day, you guys are the ones who grind. And I mean, I know a lot of times we get pushed back because we don't have like 1 million subscribers on our channel. Even though I think that they're like, when we talk about stuff, you'll notice other YouTubers with a wider reach start picking up on it. Lots of people have noticed this and pointed it out to us, that we sort of get to it first. And by getting to it first, you guys who listen to us get it to even more first. Well, no, we get to it first and then you get it to it first after that. Okay, never mind. Anyway, but my point is that you guys have stuck with this day after day after day. Those of you who have, this isn't about being popular. It's about grinding and getting gains when it comes to advocating for men's issues, becoming stronger and more capable of finding and deploying the arguments that shut feminists down. And that's what we need to do now, is we need to shut them down, because the world is healing. Even if it's a small, like if it's a little small thing, Kentucky shared parenting, the world is healing. And feminists take offense at that, because apparently they want to destroy everything and themselves. Well, I mean, they don't have any foresight. Okay, so let's finish this off.
You want to finish this off?
Actually, I don't know if you heard. Jeff, who is somebody that I don't know, just let me double check, gave us $1,000. So
Jeff, awesome.
Whoa, Jeff.
I wish I had like a sound effect. I still don't have
that.
that.
Yeah,
set
I
up.
was talking about that too. Like
I'm sorry.
I
I don't have that yet. I'm working on it.
Yeah. I'm also need to work on
I started
something.
to, but then like the soundboard that I was using, for some reason it's not liking any of my sounds, so I may have to start over with it, which kind of sucks. So
yeah,
but yeah.
Okay. So thank you to Jeff. Big thanks to Jeff. And so I just wanted to tell you that, because that's pretty cool, and that means we're funded, because we only had $700 left.
Awesome.
Yep. Oh yeah,
right.
It looks like he's actually a supporter. So thank you. Although it's been a couple of years since he supported. Well, no, it's been 1 year. But no, that's great. Thank you for coming back, Jeff. It's nice to see you. Okay.
All right. So we play more of this.
Yep.
Getting equal custody, which is huge for them.
Ooh.
Well, it shows how many women just view divorce as I don't have to do anything and I get, a check for the next 18 years. Right?
No crap.
One of the
Yeah. I'm glad that he brought that up, because a lot of people would just say like something else. Like definitely that whole thing about like, women should be, I don't know, like that whole idea of pathologizing husbands against their wives so that you can like encourage divorce. That is definitely a myth that has to die.
Well, yeah, the myth of the pathologized husband, not the myth that are doing this, because they are definitely
no.
The
myth that they're perpetuating is what I mean. Yeah,
and it really, like, conservatives really need to close off that blind spot.
Yeah.
Stop.
And another thing too is that, like, well, I mean, yeah, I think that women are using divorce to get paid, but I also think that women could be using it for revenge. They could be using it for for petty reasons. The fact that there is almost no risk and there's a lot of incentives to do it, and they get coerced into it by divorce lawyers, by peers, by the media. It's everywhere. Like I said, it's normalized. Like this, how many stories and films and stuff have you seen where they show like a married wife as miserable because she's married, and there's something that tempts her away to get divorced, whether it's like another man or not. Well, that used to be a thing, but now it's less of that. Now it's more like a job and like something fulfilling, single women around them. getting them to leave their husbands or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of factors, but yeah, I think that that's a big one. All right, so more of this.
Things about equal custody is I'm pretty sure it's like way harder to get good
alimony. Yes. So yeah, that that kind of happened actually a little bit after this legislation was passed, because again, men have no rights. Haha, it's nothing's gonna ever change. But fortunately, recently Kentucky's legislature did decide that parents who spend more time caring for their children should also pay less in child support. So to be fair, in these divorces, men still often are saddled with child support. However, at least now the state's like, oh, wait a second, you have 50% custody. What's going on here? And I've actually seen this show up organically in like financial audit interview YouTube channel shows where mothers who are used to getting child support are complaining about this.
So the financial, you mean like that guy that's always got viral videos where he's like he's trying to help people balance their budgets, like pay off their debts.
Yep,
And
that guy.
yeah, there's a surprise. Well, not surprising if you're here, but there's a large number of women that are angry that child support payments are not even like they're losing them, but they're just being like, maybe they're being reduced, or they're not able to increase them or something. So yeah. All right. Is there another? Keep going.
Yep.
Yes, they're freaking out. They're like, what? What am I supposed to do? Get a job?
They're like, and now my child support's gone down because my husband is, has 50% custody. So this is 100% showing up like in the wild naturally. And I think that's really big.
For pronatalism, this is something we should push much more. I think forced equal custody and forced no child support when there is equal custody, because there shouldn't be child support in equal custody cases.
I mean, I get child support in the event that a woman like completely dropped her career.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like she went into the marriage to be a homemaker and never had a job. I get that, even in equal custody.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say anything about any of that. I mean, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I think most men's issues advocates are probably fine with that, as long as men have equal shared custody, physical custody.
Yeah,
like this is an outcome that's like a lot of fathers have primary custody and still pay child support.
Well, the other thing too is that like the thing about child support is that like does it actually go to the child?
Probably not, but
that's the thing too, is that a lot of times child support, I don't think there's any way to control whether or not
not at
the
all.
money only
Not at
goes
all.
to the child, or if the mom just uses it for whatever.
Yeah, no, there's no way of controlling that. And I've heard stories of fathers who have to pay child support. They don't want to go back to family courts, or at least this was a while back, because they didn't want anything to be changed. They were fine paying child support as long as they had access to their kids, and they didn't want to rock the boat because of the kind of bias they were facing in the courts. But it sounds like people are finally, cleaning up the feminism. We need an aggressive clean, guys. We need it out of our NGOs. We need it out of our schools. We, of course, need it out of the family courts. And we need our politicians it needs to be political suicide to start talking about feminism. At least the feminism that says, I mean, we could talk about equal rights. That's fine. Not the feminism that frames men as abusers, oppressors, and using domestic violence and sexual assault to oppress women. It is unsubstantiated malarkey. Remember years ago, I don't know if you remember this, Shu got involved in this. I did a tweet that said, the assertion that men oppress women is it is a radical assertion, which requires, it's an extraordinary assertion, which requires extraordinary evidence, and which has not been supplied. In fact, literally there is no evidence, and where there is evidence, it's against the assertion. And Shu retweeted it, and she got shit. I don't know if you know about that. She got flambéed for it. Although I think now she'd probably agree with it, like wholeheartedly. Anyway,
Yeah.
shall we watch a little bit more? You seem to have trailed off, so perhaps we should do a bit more.
No. I was just listening to you and looking at the chat.
Yeah.
I think that the sort of the worse you make divorce, the less divorce we're gonna have, right? And
kind of, but we'll see a comparison there. Actually, I'm just going to jump to it because we should compare how this is related to China. So while this reform obviously is focused on first and foremost creating a fairer system, like this legislation wasn't passed with the knowledge that it was going to reduce divorce rates. It was just it was creating a system that incentivized less adversarial breakups.
All right, I'm just pausing for the banana and like I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You don't have to start from we want to lower divorce rates. You can just do it for like what they said, because it's a more just system to presume a 50-50 shared parenting and to like presume that, either party, if there is an abusive party, it could be either one of them. And instead of having the sort of like, inherent bias in favor of, it's like and it's based, I mean, if there's data, they're probably pulling it from feminist sources that will claim, what we've been saying on this show for, the entire time. And it will just have the side effect. That's like what the best outcome, honestly, because like then you don't have to necessarily be like, a pro-natalist person in the sense of policy, because you can't really put into policy like mandated marriages. But if you make marriage like not a disaster for men, then it will benefit them and children and women. At least in that way, like because the thing is right now, marriage and child support and alimony, they're all just kind of like salad bar items that a woman could take if she wants to. And there's no commitment no matter what. She can just decide, you know what, I don't want to get married anymore. I think I'm just going to like get a divorce and collect payments from this guy, just like they do with children. I don't want to be pregnant. I'm just going to get an abortion. I'm just going to take some aspirin or whatever. Whatever it is to kill my baby, right? And because there's no negative repercussions for that, women are going to do it. But if you do have these things in place, they're not even negative on women. They will just be like a thing they have to take in consideration. So it's like, well, okay, marriage is going to involve, it's going to be a lot harder for me to get out of without losing something potentially. So now I got to be really thoughtful about whether or not I want to do it to begin with. And so the women who say, well, I'm going to get married anyway because I want kids, I want a family, and I want to be married to a man who I love, then they're going to do it regardless. And then the ones that think of it in a sort of like a disposable, flighty way, well, they're not going to do it. And that's it's better that a woman who has no intention of committing to someone, it's better she never get married, is what I'm saying. So if she never does, then that's good for her. And it's good for him because he doesn't, like a man who's entering marriage probably doesn't have that same like mindset of seeing it as disposable. So he's going to be destroyed by the divorce. And it's good for any children that might get involved. So I think this is just like a win-win-win regardless.
Oh, it's even more than that because there's another entity that's winning we haven't even covered. By the way, I'm going to spurg out on you in terms of my designerly sense. When we are in that the vertical stream where you have the responding thing in the middle, your video is not going all the way to the edge. It's like driving me nuts because I'm an autist and I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I can change anything right now, but
yeah, you just have to stretch it when it's, well, I mean, you can't do it until we are like, anyway, it doesn't matter. But I'm just pointing it out. Okay. Let's finish this.
So there's like less money spent on lawyers, less fighting, less people just divorcing to try to get a bunch of stuff out of their partner. And in contrast, China's policies, which we did go over in an episode a while ago, focus more on slowing or preventing divorce by regulation and delay.
Yeah, I remember. I thought it had a positive effect.
Yep.
Negative effect.
So
Wait. Well, I'm curious now. Let's see.
Both have reduced divorce rates, but China's approach also appears to have discouraged both marriage and childbearing, which is an effect that is not seen.
Why is it? I don't understand how this could affect marriage and childbearing, the Chinese policy.
Well,
that's interesting.
It's different. Since 2021, China requires a mandatory 30-day cooling off period for couples seeking an uncontested, that is to say, mutual consent divorce. Yeah. And either party can withdraw during this time, which halts the process. And the cooling off period did lead to a drop in divorce, but honestly, it's lower. So their divorce rate fell from 3.4% in 2019 to around 1.8% in 2023. I think that's lower.
But I think our legal change is much better. So,
but then at the same time, marriage rates declined as well, and the birth rate continued dropping, which suggests that more people now are just avoiding marriage entirely.
Yeah. Well, China's like, their system is a bit better, but maybe not as good as what they're constructing in Kentucky. And you know why? Like, you know what this is being constructed from, guys? It's being constructed from the men's issues, men's rights talking points. What's happening in Kentucky? Yet because we kept this stuff alive, they're constructing policy based on it, and they're finding downstream effects. Now, I don't know if Simone and Malcolm talk about it. So let's just keep going.
All right.
Sidestep the difficulty of divorce, and there has been no measured decline in marriage or birth rate.
So I'm going to push back on the cause here. I'd suggest people watch our video on Nobody Wants to Marry Chinese Women Anymore. There is a Chinese cultural change around women where they're
there's that too.
Worse than woke women in the United States.
Yeah.
And they're just, nobody wants to marry them anymore. And so I don't think.
I believe that. I mean, I know that's true. That Asian women are in China, South Korea. I know for sure those countries. I think Japan too. Their standards are crazy high. They're like super hypergamous, and the men are just don't find that they're worth it. So I think that Chinese birth rates in those Chinese birth rates are low. Not birth rates, marriage rates are low because the women are impossible. So, and that's great. Like worse than the woke women in America. So that they're super cooked. Because
they're super hypergamous.
What?
Like Chinese women are insanely hypergamous. I think we're gonna need to get like ear pods for you, because you're not like maybe you're not hearing me completely.
No, I heard you. It's just that I was talking when you were talking, so I couldn't hear you over myself.
It's because I'm quiet and Canadian, and you're loud and Chicagoian.
I'm loud in Puerto Rican. Then we were loud.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So let's. I think we were almost like I don't know if they actually cover the item that I found out. And
what do you? Okay. Well, do you want to just tell me, because this is like a long video?
Yeah. Let's. I'll just. You know what? I'll tell everyone. Okay. So I was having an argument. I know it's a shock, guys. I was having an argument with a feminist on Twitter, and we were discussing the association between divorce and actually, no, it wasn't divorce. It started off, we're talking about birth rates, and the feminist said, well, if we wanted to increase birth rates, men would do more chores around the house. And we got into an extended discussion, and I pointed out that men doing more chores is associated with divorce. And she kept bringing up, but women say that they're more satisfied in relationships where men do more chores. But and what was happening was Grok, and then later she moved to Chat GPT because Grok wasn't giving her the answer she wanted, was drawing from studies that asked women, do you feel it's more fair if your partner does more chores? And the women said yes. And they were extrapolating from women's feelings that this would result in fewer divorces. But when you actually looked at the empirical evidence, and this is, I went through this with ChatGPT. ChatGPT gave me a whole bunch of crap based on these feminist studies and women saying, oh, it's more fair. I feel like it's more fair. I feel like I'm less taken advantage of. I feel. And I said, stop. Give me the numbers. What is the behavior? What is the association with men taking on more chores and divorce? The behavior of ending a relationship. And ChatGPT is like, oh, yes, actually, looking at empirically sound findings and associations between behavior is what we should be doing. Oh, by the way, there is a strong association between men taking on equal chores and divorce. And the overall argument was whether or not chores increase the birth rate. So I said, okay, ChatGPT, discount Grok. That's what I'll call ChatGPT.
How is that not just stupid? That
bargain basement Grok.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, ChatGPT is bargain basement Grok now, or sales bin Grok. This dollar store Grok. Okay, dollar store Grok. If you include the negative effect of divorce on the birth rate, does men increasing their chores result in a positive increase in the birth rate? No. It's a nut negative when you include the fact that leads to divorce more. So I pointed this out to the feminist, and she fawned off because it's like, oh no, you're wrong. We hate women. You hate women. You hate them. I'm like, okay, whatever.
But she saw a TikTok video that made this claim, Allison.
Oh,
so
yeah.
She read it on a Medium blog. It's data, basically.
You know what I'm dealing with now on Twitter? There are feminists. You remember we went through the Manifestel bullshit with the bonobos? There are feminists using those arguments now on me and Twitter.
Oh my God.
Yes. These influencers, guys, these female influencers are arming legions of women with these retarded arguments. Thankfully, Grok has gotten that upgrade, so it's a lot easier to annihilate them. But anyway, so the original...
Speaking of Grok, well, no, finish your story.
Okay, so the original argument was the relationship between men doing chores and men increased birth rate. But through the conversation, Grok said something to me that I ended up drilling down on. And what it was that shared parenting is associated with increased birth rates. Guys, so remember we went through that whole thing about how, we're all going to hell, like birth rate hell, because, nobody's having children anymore. Shared parenting increases birth rates, right? And then I drilled down on that, on what's going on, started bringing up the Kentucky stuff. Apparently they're having more children. And the reason why they're having more children, here's the thing, is that when women have an involved partner, like a man who is involved in the raising of his children, highly involved, they're more likely to have more children. Okay, it's not just providership. Okay, that's actually not, it may be important, but it's not sufficient. What is sufficient is that men involve themselves more in the day-to-day raising of their own children, which incidentally many fathers want to do. And what was preventing this involvement was the fact that men did not know if they were going to be able to have that relationship protected legally, right? So they created distance because they didn't know if they were going to lose their child in a divorce. But once that fear was taken away, they got more involved. The women saw the involvement of their partners increasing. Maybe they didn't see it consciously, but unconsciously. And they were more likely to say, yeah, I'll have a second child. Yeah, I'll have a third child. Yeah, I'll have a fourth child, because their partner was more involved. And he was more involved because he knew his kids weren't going to be taken away. And that increased the birth rate. So get this, guys, the things that we have been talking about for myself for like 20 years, me and Brian for 10, these things are fixing society's problems. Men's issues, recognizing men's issues, dealing with them, advocating them, is advocating for society, and it's advocating for the human future. So you guys were never in a position of being the victims. Like people constantly accuse, never the whiners. You were the truth tellers that kept the flame alive. The solution to the problems that everyone's facing now. The solution to the problem of the breeding colony collapse that everyone is facing now. All of our economic problems are a result of that. A lot of our political problems are a result of that because we can't find cohesion anymore. Now we're arguing over things that are functional, like they are functional. They're mechanisms of a functional country. Controlling immigration is a mechanism of a functional country. Now it's an argument. That is ridiculous. It should never be an argument. But that is a sign that social cohesion is collapsing, right? And it's essentially what's happened is nobody is invested in the concept, or not nobody, but maybe half of the U.S. population. To use an example, because this is rife everywhere in the West, they're no longer invested in the idea of a society, the idea of a cooperative relationship with their neighbor. They're no longer invested in that. So they no longer want to protect it. Why? Because we have embraced a corrosive narrative about how men and women relate. And that means we have embraced a corrosive narrative about how everyone relates. And there's going to be more and more problems that are caused by that narrative, because it is the foundation of the trust required for our productivity, for our political systems, for our medical systems, for our justice systems, for our roadways, for our infrastructure, for our education. That trust between men and women is required for everything. It is the foundation of everything. There is nothing that it does not touch, which is probably why one of the most critical statements in the Bible, just to bring Christianity, I know everybody's groaning now, is that women submit to men. What did that functionally mean? Women demonstrate trust, because that is the foundation of trust in everyone, in everything. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Instead of women's greatest weakness, it's actually their greatest power, because that demonstration of trust supercharges cooperation between people in every capacity that you could possibly imagine. Okay.
All right. Well, now I do have to go.
Okay.
So I got to go pick up Lindsay. So,
all right then.
What? Go
ahead. I said, all right then. Let's wind it down.
All right. Oh, your camera froze, Allison.
Oh shit! When did it freeze?
Oh no! No, it's back up now. I don't know. It just did for.
Okay.
It's fine now.
Okay. Was it freezing while I was yapping?
No, it just did briefly, but it's fine now.
Okay.
Either that or you were very still, which I don't believe. So.
Well, I am on my fourth cappuccino, so probably not.
No, there's no way. You could be moving so fast that it looks like you're sitting still, kind of like, when you spin a propeller, it starts to look like it's going in the opposite direction. Anyway,
if I ever start looking, like if you ever start seeing something that looks like the angels from the Bible, with the multiple eyes and arcs,
the fourth dimensional,
you'll just know that I have broken the time barrier, the space-time barrier.
Biblically accurate, Allison.
Kinetic ness. Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and do the things, and I'll do the things.
All right, so I'll just double check to see if there's any more thank yous to give. Sometimes you guys do a little bit more on that score. And again, big thank you to Jeff. Thanks for coming back, man.
Thank you, Jeff.
Really appreciate it. And doesn't look like there's any additional thank yous. Big thanks to Telenar and OKFS, because they also got us over the edge at this fundraiser. And a big thanks to everybody who supported us earlier. Very much appreciated, because we are making progress. I know it seems slow and agonizing. I think Grok is going to actually really help. You should start outsourcing a lot of
You
these.
should check out Grokpedia, Allison. We're on there,
Really?
and it's actually a very fair article. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, look up men's rights activists, Gamergate, and Honey Badger Brigade on Grokpedia. You'll find that
Awesome.
it's actually quite fair. I'm like, wow, this is not Wikipedia. And
Yeah.
Wikipedia is sweating bullets, by the way.
Good, because they need to. They've just been running roughshod over everybody ideologically. But okay, so I just want to remind everybody that you don't have the problem like that. You guys here, you think that, you know, and I don't want to need to minimize your pain, but the truth is that the fact you can recognize these issues, that you can exist in this space where you're not deflecting blame from women and you're actually recognizing the vulnerabilities of men, mark you as uniquely stubborn. And the solution is going to come from us and you, not from the world. I mean, it'll come from the world adopting what we talk about, like it did here. Birth rate problem, what's the solution? What a shock. It was a men's issues all along. That was the solution. Shared custody. Okay, I'm going to feedthebadger.com/justthetip at any time after the show, and we will respond to you at the next reasonably appropriate show. I would say feedthebadger.com/support, but we got what we need. So it would only be giving us more, which you can do if you want. So yeah, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us those comments. All right, Brian.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame, number 187 on an Undercover Cop. And we will talk to you guys in the next one. Have a good Halloween, Hallows Eve, All Saints,
season,
and all that. See you guys next week.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.